Yeah, it's like the writers were like, you get a baby, you get a baby, you get a baby. Everybody has a baby. Shout out to Alexa Vega, though. Alexa Vega plays Kylie, of Spy Kids fame. She looks great. She looks really like she suns regularly. So good for her. Hello, everyone. This is Alex.
And this is Em.
Welcome to the latest episode of The Good, the Bad, the Basic.
This is the podcast for nostalgia Gen X and millennials and binge watchers of all ages.
On this podcast, we'll be discussing what we love, what we hate, and what was just a bit problematic about the TV and movies that we're addicted to, and do a bit of rewriting where necessary.
For much more exclusive content, become a show producer on Patreon and get access to after-the-episode bonuses, curated playlists, movie reviews, music video retrospectives, and so much more. Join the GBB family at patreon.com/goodbadbasic.
We've officially begun Season 4 of GBB, Lights, Camera, Action, focusing on series about entertainment and show business. To start things off, we'll be discussing ABC CMT's hit musical drama, Nashville.
Lasting 4 seasons on ABC and 2 more on CMT, Nashville consistently defied the odds and remained a hit TV series for nearly 6 years.
An ensemble musical drama about the lives of country music artists, Nashville was overflowing with great original music and a strong cast of actors to sell the story.
But what was it about this series in particular that allowed it to survive and thrive despite generally low ratings and even a cancellation? Stay
tuned.
All right, everyone. So some critical information about Nashville. It is a drama and a musical drama, as we covered, and an ensemble drama at that. Nashville was created by Callie Curry, and it aired from October 10th of 2010 until July 26, 2018, with a cancellation from ABC wedged in between there. It lasted for 6 seasons and 124 episodes. The show stars Connie Britton as Raina James, Hayden Panettiere as Juliet Barnes, Charles Eston as Deacon Claiborne, Jonathan Jackson as Avery Barclay, Claire Bowen as Scarlett O'Connor, Sam Palladio as Gunnar Scott, Robert Wisdom as Coleman Carlisle, Chris Carmack as Will Lexington, Lennon Stella as Maddie Conrad, and Maisie Stella as Daphne Conrad, with a host of other supporting, recurring, and auxiliary characters. So let's jump right into Season 1 of Nashville. It was 22 episodes long, which is a pretty great season order and pretty standard for ABC. Nashville, as far as my memory allows me to know, is the only musical drama they've ever even had on that network, which is very well known for law procedurals, cop procedurals, and medical procedurals. So what do we think of Nashville?
Right. So Nashville is like an interesting cultural artifact. Like you said, it's done by Callie Curry, who essentially took the Shonda Rhimes route, in that Callie Curry very famously wrote Thelma and Louise, Something to Talk About, and Divine Secrets of the Ya-Ya Sisterhood. And Nashville was her first TV joint. And that was Shonda Rhimes' route as well. And Shonda Rhimes had written like Crossroads and had done some other features, and Grey's Anatomy was Shonda's first TV joint. So looking at Season 1 is interesting. Mostly because Season 1 is not that good. It's very uneven. I think it definitely exists off the strength of the cast, and I think around that time, country like showbiz dramas were coming back, but particularly like music industry dramas, because I think a couple years before, you have Country Strong, that Gwyneth Paltrow movie with Garrett Hedlund and Leighton Meester, but it's in the cultural consciousness. So I guess something around, I guess, going around in Hollywood was like, yeah, this is what we want to do. But yeah, I was kind of surprised. I was like, yeah, this isn't that good.
Yeah, so I was surprised, but I wasn't surprised. You guys know I always have a theory. So I have a theory about why the show managed to last 4 seasons on ABC, even though, like Alex said, the first season is not that good. Like there are a lot of good, like the basic premises are good, but the execution within the writing is really like, what the fuck? And my theory is a couple things. Showbiz dramas were back in fashion, like Alex said, but specifically, a network like ABC had never had a showbiz drama before, or at least not in at least 15 years, because I hadn't seen one on that network. And most people that watch ABC don't watch ABC for entertainment dramas. So when you have a show like this on ABC and these people are unfamiliar with what an entertainment drama is supposed to look like, they'll take pretty much anything.
I think my personal sort of speculative theory is definitely like that there was a miscommunication in the writer's room about like what they wanted this show to be. Because I think that's one of the prevailing things that I feel throughout the narrative when I'm watching it. I'm just like, it feels like they don't even really know what they want, because there are all these plots that like I don't care about, like that they keep pushing because I don't, and I assume they're only pushing it because somebody is like, this isn't just a drama about like a country singer. It's about like, you know, the politics and like the city, and it's like, nobody gives a shit. Like, just make this showbiz drama. Like, let it be about the music industry. That's fine. That's what's interesting about it. Yeah, but I guess they weren't feeling that too deep.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, Alex and I have had private discussions about this. And one of the first things I said about Nashville was that I really strongly believe that what happened in the writer's room was that everyone was trying to tell their story and not a story, like a cohesive story. There was a lot of, you can see the obvious friction within the writer's room and among the showrunners, of which the show had several at once. If you have tuned into our first episode of our On the Lot series, if you're a patron, we spoke with Kathleen McGee Anderson of Lincoln Heights, and she says something that people who are, you know, pretty interested in behind the scenes work of television already know, which is that the showrunner tells a story. But if you've got 3 or 4 showrunners already from jump, what story are you telling exactly? This is why my theory that the show was only successful because ABC viewers really didn't know how an entertainment drama should be run stands. There's no way that a courtroom procedural or a medical procedural, which that network is known for, would have been able to get away with the writing that Nashville got away with. So the show opens with 8.93 million viewers, which sounds like a lot, but isn't a lot, especially, again, for a network like ABC, which is, it's like a home for really serious dramas, right? The show does a lot of cool things, like, for instance, all of season 1, every episode except for the pilot episode is named after a Hank Williams song. It's cute. the overall premise is cute. We have Raina James, who is a country singer who's past her prime, and she feels the brunt of age and being replaced by a young up and coming sort of country pop singer named Juliet Barnes. Raina's got this drama with her ex, Deacon Claiborne, who is a country musician, a touring musician, and a songwriter, as well as an alcoholic, which is why they broke up. And Juliet is trying to, move past her past with her mother, who is a substance abuser and an alcoholic as well. So these are like our primary female protagonists, and like the other main characters kind of explode in. We meet Deacon's niece, Scarlett, and we meet her boyfriend at the time, Avery, who's like, trying to be a rock star, and she's a waitress in a cafe trying to find her passion and her calling. And all of these premises are great on paper, but what the show does with them in season 1, it's a lot, and it's not all good.
Right. This show burns through story super quickly, and not for like the better. And like, I mean, one thing that the show does really well, I think, in establishing these people is that like all the people are, I think you can recognize everyone. Like, Connie Britton is definitely playing this sort of like Faith Hill type, which like Faith Hill, Shania Twain type. Juliet is in this sort of Taylor Swift, Carrie Underwood type. Go
ahead. I was gonna shout out my friend Kiana when I said that, because that was like her brainchild.
Well, I didn't. Well, so to your friend Kiana's point, like, I didn't see that like Gunnar and what's his face were like the Civil Wars, which is so. And I guess the Gunnar and Scarlett are supposed to be ciphers for the Civil Wars, but like the Juliet being like, and I didn't peg Juliet as like Carrie Underwood, but like, Connie Britton being like a Faith Hill, Shania Twain type was obvious from jump to be, and so was, so that like definitely comes, at least that one, like I think is comes through. So does like the Juliet being like like I said, well, I thought Taylor Swift, and then Layla Grant later feels like Kelly Pickler, and Luke Wheeler feels like a Kenny Chesney, Tim McGraw hybrid, and yeah. I was like, who's Will? I was like, I'm not sure. Did you have a theory for Will?
Yeah, there's actually a gay country singer who put out a record of basically like a coming out record, and he his song kind of flopped because it was basically about being into another guy. So hold on, let me find his name, because I just remember the one single. Country music pretty much buried him very quickly. So my friend Kiana was watching this. She is a big country music fan like I am, and when I watch a show, I just watch the show, but she hadn't watched the show when it aired, and she only watched it recently because I told her we were going to be reviewing the show. And she was like, okay, so Raina is Faith Hill, like Deacon is Tim McGraw, Luke is like a Garth Brooks, Layla is like probably like a young Taylor Swift / Kelly Pickler, and Gunnar and Scarlett are the Civil Wars. And Avery is an interesting one because I don't think she had a cipher for Avery, but Avery for me is like literally every major producer in country music. They almost all of them have a background in rock music, and Avery is in a rock band when the show opens, and all of them have like a great sound for modern country artists. So the way that the show plays with these characters, especially aesthetically, making them really resemble these country music stars in the way that they dress and in the way that their music sounds is really, really great. Nashville doesn't hit a false note when it comes to the music, but the writing of these characters' inner lives is a lot.
Anyway, but season 1 of Nashville is like, is interesting. So once again, Nashville has done something that like I hate, which is that they make the actors actually sing. And for Hayden Panettiere, it's not a problem because Hayden Panettiere was like a Disney girl, and you know that's part of her joint. And Jonathan Jackson also does like a really good job, and the people who play Deacon, Scarlett, and Gunnar also all had sort of previous backgrounds in music, but like they should have hired a voice double for Connie Britton. They like, I don't know how that didn't happen is like kind of blows my mind because like, so in either the pilot or the second episode, they make a comment that like Juliet can't sing. That's Hayden Panettiere's character, but she clearly can. And they're coding like Raina as like I said, they code Raina as like this huge sort of domineering figure, but like Connie Britton is the real one who can't sing. And like, I guess as the audience, we're just supposed to like go with it. But I'm like, no, like you should have hired this voice double. And it's clear and then it's also clear that Connie Britton doesn't want to sing because then by second season, she's really not singing anymore. Like she's stopped. Like Hayden Panettiere and the rest of the cast are the ones that are doing the heavy lifting with all these songs and stuff.
Right. I thought that was interesting too, because while I absolutely think that Kiana was right that she looks like a Faith Hill and she's supposed to be a Faith Hill, Connie Britton sounds like a low budget Jo Dee Messina. Like Jo Dee Messina, if Jo Dee Messina was not as strong of a vocalist. Like there are a lot of similarities in the tone of their voice, but Connie Britton is not a stronger singer than Hayden Panettiere. I don't know why they wrote that after hearing them sing. I don't know why they wrote that after hearing literally everyone else in the cast out-sing Connie Britton. And I feel like they should have gotten themselves an actor with like kind of like a stage training, like a Sutton Foster from Younger, who can sing.
Right. Yeah, because it's obvious. It's obvious, and you're supposed to. And like I said, like the show like says it a bunch of times, and the show like rattles off like how many CMAs she's won and like how many albums sold. So you're just going with it, but like it's definitely like a big suspension of like belief. Like it was up there for me.
Right, because when we talk about a Faith Hill or a Shania Twain, they're not just pretty faces, they can sing. And that's another thing about country music. You're not going to make it as a vocalist in country music if you can't sing. And that's across the gender lines. I personally don't think that Raina would have been successful as a singer in country music because she's not that great of a singer and her voice doesn't have a very distinct personality like, say, a Dolly Parton. Luckily, the songwriters on the show know not to give her anything that is truly challenging vocally to sing. Like, Raina's songs are very simple to sing.
Right. But even then, like, Wrong Song is like, is a pretty, like, it's not like challenging, but it is like it does need to be sung by somebody who can sing. Listen, Hollywood.
I mean, didn't Juliet carry that song though?
I mean, that's true. Hayden Panettiere carried the song. But listen, Hollywood. Listen, I see a lot of viewers. Like we have a lot of listeners in LA. So I know like some of you are probably industry types. Like just hire the voice double. Like just do it. Like stop this. Like it's dumb.
Right.
Seriously.
Or just like get yourself a Broadway actress who's waiting for her big break, right? Because if it's a musical drama, getting actors who sing is not always going to be your ticket. Like sometimes you need a singer who acts.
Right. And that's fine. We're okay with that. But like these elements have to work. So then another thing that is sort of really sticky about this first season is that it feels like people, like these characters are written and then all the wrong people were like, not all the wrong people, but like people who did, and then people were cast, but they didn't quite fit the role that they were cast for. Like, and so what I mean by this is that we have like, so moving on to like Deacon Claiborne, who's played by Charles Esten, who you will remember as Ray from Big Love. So Deacon is Raina's sort of like on again, off again, on again, off again, like relationship. And it's clear that like, particularly in the pilot, and not even in the pilot, but in like the first couple 5 episodes, he's supposed to be someone who is good-natured, yes, but is also like kind of sleazy, because like he does do like a couple of things that are like slightly like, ooh. The main thing that I can think about is that he has sex with Juliet when she's like at a really vulnerable place, when she really just like needs a friend. And that's what particularly makes it sleazy is that like he knows she needs a friend. It's very clear he sleeps with her anyway. Charles Esten is not somebody who does like sleaze well, or like that, that kind of like, I think just kind of dirty quality. That's not like his bag. His bag is like earnestness, and like he knows how to be like super earnest and like super good and like super like broken in terms of just like emotional turmoil. He knows how to do all of that, but like that sort of dirty quality like does not come through. And it's present in the first like couple of episodes. And I think that, and it's the same sort of situation with Avery. I think Avery was written to be like a real like asshole, but Jonathan Jackson does not do like real asshole well. Like he does it, and like and I think as a viewer, you definitely take away that like he's shitty for being unsupportive, but all those sort of like really sort of nasty, like super hyper ambitious, edgy qualities of Avery's character is lost. I think all that stuff is lost by, I think, mid-season 1. There was an interview on Vulture with a writer, a co-creator of the show that said exactly that. Because I was like, I don't pull that from nowhere. That talks about Avery was supposed to be an asshole, but they let up because Jonathan Jackson was so nice. So like that's what I'm saying. So they had these ideas of like how these characters were supposed to be, but then they, like I said, it's slightly miscast. Because then, so now you like the actor, or like the actor is nice, or the actor doesn't do this like asshole-ish thing super well. So now you have to then do something to make this new part work, which, yeah, like I said, like, I mean, it's felt, honestly. I feel it. And I wouldn't be surprised if that was also the case with Charles Esten.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either. Like I said, there's too many people behind the helm here, and I really think that everybody wanted their quote unquote vision, despite the who was cast and what they can bring to the table. I think the characters who are cast the best is, the first casting, Sam Palladio as Gunnar Scott, Hayden Panettiere as Juliet Barnes, and Eric Close, who plays Teddy Conrad, Raina's husband. I think these are the best castings on the show.
The show burns through a lot of story, but then they leave all these loose ends, or like things just sort of end, and they're not necessarily like resolved. They're just over. Season 1 is like mostly consumed by, I think, the rivalry between Juliet and Raina.
And Raina's label, actually asks her to open for Juliet, which is a big insult when you're as popular and successful as Reina is. And this is when the real clash starts. Juliet's star is rising, but she feels threatened by Reina's long-term success and respect within the industry. And Reina has all those things, but she's threatened by Juliet's rising star and youth, I guess, in an industry that values these types of things. They both have their own personal issues, and they seem to bring out the worst in each other for most of season 1, a situation which is exacerbated by Deacon, who wants to be with Reina, who he hasn't been with in about 13 years when she left him to marry her husband, Teddy Conrad. And because he can't have Reina, he sleeps with Juliet.
Right. So Juliet already has an album out. It's a hit record, because listen, this will be part of the first of like the many inconsistencies on this show. Juliet already has an album out. It's a hit record. It's doing numbers because that's like what the fight is about, that like Juliet has like made all this money for the label already. And they're like making her, and because of like her bad behavior, they're making her tour with Reina. Yeah. So something interesting about Juliet is that from the beginning, they code Juliet as somebody who uses her body and like uses her sexuality and like sleeps with men to get what she wants. That's part of like, she is like a smart girl within and of herself, but that's definitely something that's heavy in her arsenal that she uses. She likes Deacon, yes, but she's annoyed that like this thing that has always been like sort of surefire for her in terms of like sleeping with men is like backfiring now. Because in the pilot, when she's recording, the show alludes to the fact that she's like sleeping with her engineer. He's either the engineer or like the producer. And that's sort of how she even got into the door of this sort of like music industry, because everyone's like insulting her singing talent. It's interesting that they go with this, that this is like part of her character, mostly because I think we've talked about this, just of like portrayals of women who like use that to their advantage, what that means like in a larger context, and how that comes off like for the audience, and like what the audience takes away from that. But that part of her personality definitely works to villainize her, which is sort of lame.
Yeah, it doesn't work with Deacon. He initially turns her down even after she sleeps with him, and only later agrees to tour with her after Reina like breaks his heart for the umpteenth time. But Juliet really didn't have an image issue when the tour was first announced, or when they were thinking about the tour, but she quickly racks one up with shoplifting that gets caught on video and goes viral. She does another thing that like kind of villainizes her. She proposes to this Christian NFL player named Sean, who's clearly a cipher for Tim Tebow, to repair her image. The marriage is like quickly annulled, and she's basically just like running through people, particularly men, to fix her problems, to help her out, or to clean up her messes, which doesn't do much for the character. But I feel like Hayden Panettiere plays Juliet with such a vulnerability, even when Juliet is on her worst behavior. It gives the character a sort of magneticism that is hard to look away from.
Right. So I would actually say the football player one is, funny enough, is like the first plot that comes to like really humanize Juliet, actually. So you have this like Tim Tebow cipher, Sean. First of all, the actor who plays fake Tim Tebow is way hotter than in real life Tim Tebow. And he doesn't like say dumb shit like in real life Tim Tebow does. Thank God for small mercies. But he's probably like the first man in Juliet's life that is just genuinely interested in her and who she is. He's not particularly trying to get anything from her. He's super sweet. Like, he's very sweet. He's very earnest. And it shocks Juliet, right? He's like, I really, truly, honestly just want to know you. I want to be like, your boyfriend and do all that comes with that. And I mean, it's Juliet. So like she just destroys it. It's one of the first probably storylines that like really humanizes her because she's very taken with him. She's into it. She's into him. She marries him really so that like she can fuck him because he won't fuck her until she does because he's saving himself for marriage. And even in all of that they do, I think she also marries him because, he's good. He is sort of the complete opposite of her. Like, he comes from a good family. Like, he goes to church on Sundays. Like, he hangs out with his little sister for fun. Like, he and his family represent, like, all the things that she starved for and that she really wants. When they do get married and his family is like, you did what? He defends Juliet to his family. Like, he's really like, no, like, this is for real, like her, and she's overwhelmed by all the nice things. And, Juliet, she doesn't like, her boy is good, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think the Juliet character is actually a character that, from a psychological standpoint, is the best written character on the show because there is a method or a legitimate reason behind all of her madness. She is someone who grew up with a parent who was a substance abuser and whom we find out in later seasons allowed her to be abused. And her behavior patterns are spot on with someone who has never healed from that sort of trauma. Using her body to get what she wants, being attracted to but not being able to sustain relationships with people who are good for her, but constantly falling in bad patterns with people who are bad for her or people who treat her like garbage, wanting to assert authority and dominance over all situations, feeling insecure about her competence as a parent later on when she has a child. All of these things are pretty spot on with whom her character is supposed to be and her character's backstory. And writing Juliet is pretty much the only time where I see any cohesion in the stories and the character arcs on this show.
Right. Definitely. And I agree with that. Like Juliet's definitely, I think, the most cohesive drawn character in the series. Let's talk a bit about Gunnar and Scarlett and Avery and like this whole Banana Nuts drama. So Scarlett is Deacon's niece, and she is somebody who moved to Nashville to just be with her boyfriend, support her boyfriend, because Avery was moving to Nashville. And she's working at the Bluebird Cafe, which also that's super cool that they have the Bluebird Cafe in this show, because it's very famous. Like everyone plays there. Even famous people still play there. She's working at the Bluebird. She's just sort of hanging out, and she meets Gunnar, who is a songwriter trying to break in as well. And from the jump, Gunnar is like, "Oh, you're really talented, like lyricist. Let's try writing songs together." And she takes to it immediately. She falls headfirst into this industry that her boyfriend is trying so hard to break into, and she just sort of steps in with like a hop and a skip and a jump, which he doesn't take well. Scarlett's definitely like this sort of continuing archetype of like this, sort of helpless, oh, I just came off the truck from, podunk nowhere, and I wasn't really thinking about being a star, but I guess I am a star, which in another context would annoy me, but because I think you have this direct contrast of Scarlett in Juliet, who is, come hell or high water, like I'm going to be doing this, doesn't bother me.
Scarlett is such an interesting character for me because while Scarlett is very talented and Claire Bowen, who plays Scarlett, is a very great singer, I never really felt like her character had much of a personality. Really couldn't understand what Avery or Gunnar saw in her, like, as a person. And I just remember watching, like, by season 6, I was exhausted with the writer's many attempts to give her a personality. And I was like, on God, sis, if I was in that writer's room, we would get you a personality. Like, yeah, she's just, it's a lot. So Avery's in a rock band when they come to Nashville. And he is initially unsupportive of Scarlett, but he very quickly comes around. And then he realizes the great chemistry that exists between her and Gunnar. And, like, his haunches are up again because their chemistry, like, Stevie Wonder could see that shit. And he understands what's going on here. When you have chemistry like that with somebody and you're spending a lot of time with them and y'all writing love songs together, it's only a matter of time before you get together. But he sabotages a relationship of his own accord, and Scarlett breaks up with him and quickly hops into bed with Gunnar. The Scarlett's romances are actually much more interesting than Scarlett herself. She's a pretty uninteresting character, and I even remember zoning out in scenes where Scarlett is shown alone. Yeah, she's just a super boring character. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, and to be honest, even when Scarlett breaks up with Avery, like I don't know that I understand it. Like, so Avery is someone who is extremely ambitious. Like we said, he was the one that convinced her, like she moved with him because he was like, I'm gonna make it. And he's been working, trying to break in. And obviously there's like tension between them because, like, you know, she does get the publishing deal. She gets the publishing deal. She gets the attention from, like, the, you know, award-winning label, like, producer, label head person. She gets all these things very quickly. To Avery's credit, at least he understands. He understands very quickly that, like, that can be used to his advantage, which he does very quickly. He uses it to his advantage, and he tries to. There's that ongoing tension between them, but the straw that breaks the camel's back is that Avery plays a show at, like, this venue that, you know, he and his band are used to playing. And there's a guy that comes in who's in charge of finding, like, the sort of local talent that will open for the Lumineers. And he likes the band. He's like, you guys are great. You sound great. This is great. But he doesn't want to book them because nobody else has heard of them, which is dumb, but okay, that's fine. And this is probably one of the more interesting plots. So then there's a manager woman, but I don't know her name. She's an older woman. Her name it starts with an M, I think. I want to say Marie. I don't think that's right. But this older manager woman is known for sort of, like, picking out talented young guys and then, like, sleeping with all of them. That's like the trade-off, is that, like, you sleep with her and then she, like, helps your career. Avery goes to like the woman's house knowing that, like, this is sort of what's expected of him. And he's about to go through with it, but then he can't go through with it. Like, he's like, oh, I can't have a girlfriend. And she's like, and, you know, she does the whole, okay, well, I guess I'm not gonna manage you. And he does come clean with Scarlett. And then that's what Scarlett goes up about and breaks up with him over. The fact that he didn't sleep with the manager lady.
No, Scarlett broke up with him so she could fuck Gunnar without the guilt. I don't care what she told herself. That's what happened.
Because I guess because that was, like, my big thing. I'm like, wait, you're mad because he didn't sleep with this, like, Scarlett? Like, what?
We breaking up with folks for not cheating now? Come on, sis.
I was like, come on, just say you want to, like, do Gunnar and go. Like, that's fine. That's legitimate. But she's like,
I think the bed was still warm by the time she got around to fucking Gunnar. Like there was the breakup with Avery hadn't even cooled off yet.
Right, because then she does fuck Gunnar and then she feels bad. And then she goes back to Avery, but like by then, you know, she's told Avery that they're over. So Avery's like, well, my career is on the line. So like, Avery does what he needs. Avery does the sketchy thing, and he wholesale has sex with that manager lady. And then Scarlett comes back and sees it, and that's when Scarlett is for real, like, oh, nope, finished. And Avery even tries to say like, no, we were broken up. Like, if you want to get back together, I want to get back together. But like, we were broken up when I did this. And she's like, no, you're like gross and like blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, honey, like, what was the point of all of this then?
I mean, that's another thing about Scarlett is always depicted as someone who is both deeply confused and highly critical and judgmental. And what I mean by this is even when Scarlett has like things handed to her on a silver platter, she's like, well, I still don't know what I'm supposed to do. I still don't know what my passion is. And the Babe in the Woods act gets old real fucking quick. Breaking up with Avery essentially for not cheating and being honest with her about what he had planned to do, fucking Gunner, and then telling Avery she can't take him back because he fucked someone to advance his career, as if she's so much better for fucking the very guy that he was threatened by when they were together in the first place.
Right. I'm just like, honey, that doesn't make any sense.
Like, sis, she was deeply annoying. Like, she was annoying at worst and like really boring.
Right. So then another person that comes in season 1 is Liam McGinnis. Oh, Liam McGinnis, he will never die. Right. Just people that shouldn't have been here. And this is when we talk about the story, like, burns through so much. The show burns through so much so quickly. So we get Liam McGinnis, who is this rock producer. Like, he's known for like hardcore rock and like alt rock, respected in like that sort of genre. And Raina wants him to produce her record. She's getting pushback from the label, but like, this is also sort of like Liam is like younger than her, and he's quote unquote edgy and dangerous in that way that, like, I guess in that sort of archetypal Hollywood way that rock stars are like edgy and dangerous. He does produce Raina's record, but like also he has sex with her at the same time, which shout out to that multitasking, I guess, in a sense.
Yeah, it should be noted at this point, Raina and her husband Teddy are separated and going through divorce proceedings. So she's not exactly cheating on Teddy, but she's not really trying to be with Liam either. She's just with him because she can't be with Deacon at the moment. This is something these two do quite a lot, use other people to substitute for the person they really want to be with, which is like each other. But Liam is a character that really, like, pretty much overstayed his welcome from the moment he was introduced on the show. Right. Like, why are you here? Why are you here?
And he's played by, like, Michelle, who, oh my gosh, I cannot say any of these people's names. I'm really proud of myself that I mispronounce white people's names with the same frequency, with probably a greater frequency than I mispronounce like people of color's names. I feel like that's very anti-racist of me. So Michelle Huseman, I don't know if that's right. I hope it is. Because it's spelled like Michiel, but it's Dutch. It's not French.
Yeah, I don't know how the first name is pronounced. I know the last name is, you said it correctly, but I don't know how the first name is pronounced at all. Yeah, Google it, because he's literally the only actor with that name.
Yeah. I do know that he was like a hot property at the time. Like, that actor had his like break this same year, because like he's on this, but then like, and I think what happened is like he just double booked himself for like a bunch of jobs. Because he was on this, he was on Game of Thrones, and then he was in Age of Adeline, and he was in The Invitation, like all like in that time period. He was like, and then he was also on Orphan Black, so he was doing a lot of stuff. And I think what happened is like they double booked. He just like accepted all these jobs, but then like the schedules weren't straight. So then like he basically was like, I would be on your show, but I gotta leave. And then like he would finish a job, but then come back and be like, oh, hey, like, girl, like I wrapped up that other thing. can I be back? And then people would just sort of like work it. But yeah, he should have just, I don't know, they should have did his story and then bounced. It's a lot. But
yeah, they kept trying to make him work, which was annoying.
Yeah, they kept trying to work with him, which is super annoying. And then some other people that are and then like there's like a lot of, and then Will Lexington is probably our last like main character that's introduced in like the first season.
Right. In the first season, we meet Raina, Juliet, Deacon, Teddy, Scarlett, Gunnar, Avery, and Will. Will comes in like the almost around the time the season's ready to close. But these are the people, with the exception of Teddy, who gets reduced to a recurring character. These are the people that are going to be in our main cast, through season 5 at least, if not through the very end. I want to talk really, really quickly on this whole subplot in season 1 with Juliet and Dante. Honestly, I felt they moved way too fast with Juliet. And like the thing with her mom and the rehab sponsor should have been drawn out. But basically, Juliet's mom, Jolene, gets out of rehab, and her sponsor, who might also be her boyfriend, that's never clarified, he charms Juliet and quickly becomes her manager, much to Jolene and Deacon's displeasure. And then they end up having sex. Dante secretly records the whole thing and then blackmails Juliet for $10 million.
Right, which she pays.
Or she was getting ready to pay.
She's getting ready to pay, like, very easily.
But Juliet's mom decides to bite the bullet and actually do her daughter, like, one big last major solid. And she basically goes to meet up with Dante instead, like, unbeknownst to Juliet, telling him that she has the money. And then she kills him and overdoses, killing herself, basically to protect her daughter from this humiliation, because she understands that the money is not the end of it. He's going to keep asking for more money, and there's no guarantee that he won't release this tape, which would ruin her career in country music. So when Juliet should be celebrating her CMA for Best Female Vocalist of the Year, she is instead mourning her mother. And that whole sequence was heartbreaking to watch. Hayden Panettiere does grief really beautifully.
She does. And that whole plot was, first of all, that whole plot was like, felt season 2-ish. And it felt a bit silly. But I went with it. But I went with it. So the season ends. Season 1 ends with a huge, turn cliffhanger thing, in where we, the audience, find out that Maddie, Raina's oldest daughter, is also Deacon's biological daughter. It's significant because the whole time, like, since Maddie's birth, like, Raina's been telling everybody that it's Teddy's, that Maddie was Teddy's. And the only people who knew the truth was, like, Raina and Teddy.
Right.
And it ends with that big twist and her and Deacon getting into like a huge fight about it, and Deacon relapsing because Deacon is an alcoholic. Raina is like driving a car and there's this like huge car accident. So something about the Maddie plot is like, even that plot as well, like the Maddie is like really Deacon's baby thing, feels like something that should have been stretched out for at least 2 seasons. Even this big like car accident thing that happens does not feel like, it feels way too soon.
Yeah, so that's actually, for me, what's wrong with season 1. With the exception of Liam, the story actually flows really well, but they move too quickly. Y'all went to the TVD School of Writing, and it's not okay.
Yeah, like they just burned through so much story so quick.
So this is how I would have made season 1 better. Season 1 would have ended with Juliet and Sean, the football player, getting married. Either Maddie or her younger sister, Daphne, not Deacon, realizing that Maddie is Deacon's daughter. That's how that season would have ended. Like, you could have stretched it out a little bit further to Maddie and then later Deacon realizing that he's a father. The Juliet sex tape and her mother Jolene dying, that also could have all been in season 2 or even the beginning of season 3. This is so much for the first season. The way they were writing this season was like they didn't think they would get another one.
I think it's just uneven. I think that pacing is weird because particularly like when we get to season 2, there are a bunch of stuff in season 2 plots that are kicking off in season 2 that feel like they should have been in season 1, which we'll get into. For example, season 2, there's this whole plot about Raina being like really conflicted that like she's having to spend so much time like away from her girls to be on the road and be successful. That shit feels like it belongs in season 1. Like that, like, I don't know why the hell that's happening in season 2.
Right.
Like, it's that and it's a bunch of other things. But season 1, good, bad, or basic?
Just because I fucking love the music on the show, I will give it a good. Like, it's on the low side of good.
You know, I think I'm giving season 1 a basic. I don't think even the music saves it for me.
I mean, that's fair. That's valid because the pacing really is odd. At this point in season 2, for instance, where we're dealing with all of these things that are happening in Raina's life, I do feel like that whole plot of I need more time with my girls shouldn't have even been like a season 1 plot. It should have just been something that is presented as a daily part of her life because you've been touring and on the road for decades now. Why is it just now a problem? Your kids are like 13 and 11, 10 years old. It should have just been like one of the many things about Raina's character is that she's constantly feeling guilt about not being home more. Gunnar had proposed to Scarlett at the end of season 1, and she turns down his proposal in the opening of season 2. She moves out, Will moves in, and her childhood bestie Zoe, who had literally never been mentioned before now, comes to Nashville trying to be a singer and, auditioning for or backup singer gigs. And then later, Avery, Zoe, and Gunnar begin writing songs together and form a band. And Gunnar and Zoe start dating, which Scarlett cannot handle because she never knows what she wants.
Yeah. Also, season 2 marks like Raina starting this Highway 65 record label that she's really dedicated to. Like, this is like her new joint. Scarlett isn't cool with Zoe dating them at first, but she comes around because, I mean, I don't know, there's really nothing else for her to sort of be on. But I mean, I guess shout out to them finding a Black person to be on this show, or like a person who is like visibly of color, because it felt like they were trying to, in season 1, they do like, I think, make a good faith effort to have like Black people, but I don't know, they all mysteriously disappear. Like Wyclef Jean is in season 1. He never comes back ever again. Like Coleman doesn't reappear. Oh, and then Juliet's first assistant, Mysterious, who is like a Black woman, mysteriously disappears and is replaced by like a white girl. So shout out to Zoe. You survived. Friend, actress, girl, whoever you are. Season 2 is like also, I think, when we start to see like the real sort of discombobulation in terms of like, I think the show like not remembering the plots that it did, and not like having an idea of like what to do next. And then it just doing weird stuff. So like there's like a plot in season 2 where like Rolling Stone wants to have like Juliet on the cover, and she's like super, super excited because she's like, oh my God, like this is such a big deal. I can't believe it. But I'm like, you have a private jet? You have one like to your disposal, like you own it. You were also ready to easily pay someone $10 million in blackmail money. I feel like if you're working and earning at that level, you've been on the cover of Rolling Stone at least a couple of times. So that didn't make sense to me. they continue with like this Teddy plot that like I don't care about. And then also like Juliet starts like having sex with like a British lord. And apparently they play like polo, like, you know, with the horses and the sticks, like in Nashville. Like, is that even like a real thing? Like in Nashville, Tennessee, for people to like play polo?
I don't really know.
Because it doesn't feel like one.
So, some of the other plots in season 2 that I want to jump into is that while Raina's creating this record label of Highway 65, Edge Hill, her former label, has a new CEO, Jeff Fordham. And Jeff Fordham becomes like a major antagonist for many of these seasons. Jeff Fordham is played by Oliver Hudson, and he actually, unlike Jonathan Jackson, can play an asshole very well. So that's really cool because Jeff Fordham gets tied up into everybody's plots. Raina, Juliet, Will, and Layla. We meet the Layla character this season, and because Will starts dating her in an effort to bury his secret that he's gay even further. Will has a pretty decent character arc on Nashville too, I'm not gonna lie, but for I want to say the first half, about the first 3 seasons, Will is a difficult character to watch because he has a lot of pain and a lot of shame concerning the fact that he's gay and the fact that he has to be in the closet, and an upbringing that told him that it was wrong. So he's a great character. He is another character who, like the Juliet character, feels a lot of shame, and I think is written very well and portrayed really well by Chris Carmack, who you might remember as Luke on the OC, who is was surprisingly enough a very good singer. I think Will and Luke's storylines Will and Juliet's storylines in season 2 were my favorite, because we kind of got to see people go off the rails for a little bit. Juliet starts dating Avery, and that quickly goes off the rails when she cheats on him with Jeff, whom she hates, had sex with anyway, I guess as a means of punishing herself because she was in a vulnerable moment and felt down. Their relationship ends over this cheating. The storylines here in season 2 are really great, but one storyline that I felt absolutely did not belong here was Luke and Raina. Luke, a man from Raina's past whom she chose Deacon over, comes back into her life in this season. They start dating and he proposes all in season 2. It's a lot, you guys. You could have stretched that out.
You mean like Luke Wheeler, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
okay.
He proposes to Raina at the end of season 2.
Yeah.
And then she's also proposed to Luke at the end of season 2.
Yeah. Luke Wheeler, who will be like, I guess, our Kenny Chesney sort of person. I'm not gonna lie, like season 2 is definitely like when I check out of this show, because like there's too many inconsistencies like for me to be invested in any of it. There are too many things that like don't make sense to me as a viewer that I was just like, okay, I guess this is just a thing that we're doing. It's season 1, but like on overdrive. So like I said, they do these things that like are inconsistent. I mean, it is great to see Oliver Hudson. Oliver Hudson is the Jeff Fordham character. Oliver Hudson is, and he always gives a great performance in whatever he's in. He always sells it. So that's nice. Like, I'm not like I said, I'm not particularly, because I'm just like, what? None of this makes sense. But I guess some like moments that I really liked or was like, oh, that's yikes, was okay, so there's a plot where like Scarlett, so something that does happen that feels consistent is that like Scarlett has this sort of like breakdown. Scarlett has like this mental breakdown through the course of season 2 of just sort of due to the rigors of just being an artist. And that's interesting. It's interesting to watch it play out because one of the big things is that Highway 65 isn't like completely independent yet. It's a subsidiary of Edge Hill when Raina first starts it. So initially Jeff like is in charge of Scarlett as like a solo artist and like sort of getting her ready and like putting her in front of people and all this stuff. And so Scarlett like goes to like media training. They set her up to like be media trained, and she's not taking to it super well, and she can't get it right. And Jeff is like really mean to her. Don't get me wrong, Jeff is like a total ass, but he is like right in the sense of like he does tell her like she needs to like pull it together. And then like obviously like when Raina finds out, like she's like, how dare you talk to my artist that way or whatever. But the difference is that like Raina doesn't do Scarlett any favors by not being, I think, as honest with her, but like in a more in a gentler way.
Yeah, I agree with that. Scarlett is someone who, and I think this is what made her character so annoying too. From the very first time she's introduced, like if I had to describe her character in one word, it would be fragile. Like Scarlett is someone who is too fragile for XYZ and needs to be protected or needs her hand held at all times. I don't think it's a coincidence that they chose someone who was like obscenely blonde for this role either, and to try to push that feeling of delicacy about Scarlett. And you know, like Alex said, she feels the weight of being a solo artist, the weight of her abusive mother, Beverly, who's back in her life in this season, as well as Gunnar and Zoe's relationship, which she says she's okay with, but she's really fucking not. And that she collapses under the weight of all of this. And if it were anybody else, I feel like even if it was a Juliet, for example, people would just talk about it as, oh, Juliet being Juliet, that girl's always acting out. But because it's Scarlett, it's like, oh my God, poor baby, she couldn't handle it. Let's help her. And it's really kind of gross to see the ways in which Scarlett is given a sort of presumption of innocence and presumption of well-meaning and a helping hand at all times when a character like, say, Juliet or even sometimes Raina need it and don't get it.
One of the many factors comes in this breakdown is Liam. Scarlett starts having sex with Liam, and Liam gives her like these pills. We don't know what they are. I want to say it's probably like Adderall or like Phenermin or something that's like close to speed, because Scarlett is essentially like really tired and she's breaking under it. And Liam is like, oh, take these. It's just like, Liam is like, it's just like having like 3 cups of coffee. It's the same thing, which, oh my God, no. She's taking, and she's just like relying on them more and more to sort of like get through everything. She takes the pills, but then like she drinks at the same time, which is like, we all know, no, that'll really mess you up. All of that culminates in like her breaking down. And then it's an interesting plot to watch for the sake of just what it is. But then, and this is what I'm saying, like, it doesn't make sense because didn't she and Gunnar just signed like a publishing deal, like in season 1, to write songs and then publish them and get money? So particularly like Gunnar, who receives like a $400,000 check this season from the publishing royalties. I'm just like, wait a second. What just happened?
Right, which is why I say that her even signing to Highway 55 was a move born of desperation. Like, she and Gunnar had broken up. She just turned down his proposal. And she was honestly right to break up with Gunnar because of the shit he was doing at the end of season 1, to try to avenge his dead brother, which is another unnecessary plot line. But, I don't think she wanted to be in close quarters with Gunnar, so she was just doing like signing on as a solo artist as something to do. But it's like, like you have social anxiety and that you're like shy and awkward, and that you, like, no shade to Scarlett, but like you literally can't do this alone. But she does it anyway, and what happens to Scarlett is something that a perceptive viewer could have seen coming a mile away.
Right. Like, I mean, this plot is like it's heavy-handed, which is fine. I think the what really annoys me is that like Raina acts like super shocked that like Scarlett broke down, but I'm like, it's sort of your and honestly, like the way Raina reacts to it, like being super shocked and like whatever, is really why like I don't fuck with artist run labels, because like I actually do like this plot for that part for this one reason. Is because the way Raina reacts to it is so like is exactly how I think it happens at like labels that are run by like artists. When you're like running the label and like you have artists, like you cannot yourself be an artist at the same time that you are trying to like run other artists. Like you either have to be be the founder of this label and know that you as an artist are like finished and now you just want to mentor and now you just want to get other artists off the ground, or you need to like really or you need to just not do it. Because she should have been checking in with Scarlett at a frequency to know that like something was wrong way before the breakdown, like way, way, way before. But she doesn't, because she herself is also trying to like launch her own project off of Highway 65.
Right. And I mean, I feel like if you have any sort of empathy at all, you would be able to see these things in Scarlett. The girl speaks like she's on the verge of tears. You really think that she can stand up in front of a stage of tens of thousands of people and give a performance alone? This is a girl that choked in a recording booth. No, I feel like if they were paying attention to Scarlett's personality at all, this wouldn't have happened, and Raina wouldn't have even offered her to sign with Highway 65. Scarlett is someone who should be a songwriter, and that's no shade to songwriters. I don't think songwriters are less than. In fact, I think songwriters are necessary for great vocalists who don't have the writing talent themselves. But everybody's not going to be a singer, and that needs to be okay.
Gunnar got that good $400,000 check, although there is like a plot where in season 2 where like Gunnar writes this like really great song. His whole job is to be selling songs to artists. And by this point, Will has been signed to Luke Wheeler's label. And Will hears the song that Gunnar wrote, and Will is like, oh God, I want it. Like, I want that song. That's the song that I want. Like, I want to record it. Or no, he hasn't. He's still on Edge Hill. My bad. But like, Will is like, oh, I want this song. And then Gunnar acts like such a little like annoying person about selling this song to Will. He's like, no, like Gunnar's like, no, you can't record it. Like, what about me? I'm like, wait a second. Didn't you sign a publishing deal in season 1 where like, this is your job? Like, I'm just like, there are like too many inconsistencies about all of this. Like,
I mean, the inconsistency isn't in the writing, it's in the characters themselves. Scarlett signs a deal to be a solo singer, knowing damn well she does not have the constitution to be a solo singer. And Gunnar settles, in his mind, settling for a songwriting deal when he knows he wants to be an artist. Like, this is why these two characters keep gravitating to each other, because neither of them really knows what the fuck they want. They're really annoying to watch independently and together. I'm gonna be real with you. They're just really super annoying. Gunnar should have been the one to go after, a record label and be an artist, because he clearly wants that. He never stopped wanting that. And Scarlett should have been the one at home writing the hit makers and cashing her checks. You don't have to wait tables anymore, boo, but you can't be on that stage.
You can't be on the stage, right? So then another thing that happens is like Juliet and Avery start dating, and Juliet, in true Juliet fashion, does another thing that like really like messes up her reputation. And she and Avery co-write this song, "Don't Throw Dirt on My Grave Just Yet," which is a great song. One of the better songs from this season, and it's a hit. People are really excited about it. The New York Times like writes up a thing about it. But she gets dropped from her label. She gets dropped from Edge Hill. Once again, here we go with things that don't make sense to me. So she gets dropped from Edge Hill, and she's going around to all the other country labels in Nashville, and she can't get signed. But like when she gets dropped from her label, she acts like it is like the most it is the most devastating thing in the universe that could ever happen to her. Which, like, if you're nobody, like if you're somebody that's like not like famous yet, it is something that is that devastating, right? Lady Gaga talks about how she got dropped from her first label initially before she went with Interscope, and when it happened, like, she was like inconsolable. But Juliet is somebody who the show's already established, is like crazy famous, has like these huge hit records already, has a private jet. Like, are you really that devastated about being dropped from a label when you can easily probably just go to another one? Like, you could go to maybe not necessarily like a country label, but like any other bigger like outfit and be fine.
Well, when I think about that, I think about Julia as a person more than as an artist. She's someone that needs a lot of validation to feel okay. Like, validation is a series of bombs or band-aids for her, and her like deep-seated feelings of inadequacy and insecurity, which are what lead to her cheating on Avery with Jeff. So someone like that being dropped, not being the one to walk away, which she could, because as you said, she's an established artist, but being the one who is walked away from would definitely send someone like her spinning. That actually made sense to me.
And I guess like the next part of like, I guess why like for me like it didn't hit was that she then gets picked up by a major producer. Like, and this is another thing that like the inconsistency in the show. There is this mega producer out from LA that like calls her and is like, I heard don't throw dirt on my grave yet just yet. Amazing. We want to fly you out to LA. We want to do this thing. And then her and Glenn which is Juliet's longtime manager, are initially like extremely excited to a point that I was just like, wait, I don't get it, because they're like, this is it. Like, this is what we've been waiting for. Like, this is the big time. Like, you're going to be a household name. You're going to be like it. Like, the fact that this producer wants to produce you is like the biggest deal ever. And I'm like, I thought she was rich. Like, I thought like people know her outside of country music. Like, I'm so confused. Like, I've never been more confused in my whole life. And granted, she leaves, but because she wants to stay with Glenn as like a manager, and she wants to continue to try to be like a respected voice in country music, which that part made sense. But the fact that they're getting so excited that they're just like, this is it. Like, I'm just like, wait a second. If you have a private jet, you're selling out, because in season 1, they established that like Juliet and Raina, like their joint tour is like selling out like arenas. If you're already selling out arenas and like they're selling out arenas like nationwide, if you're already selling out arenas nationwide, if you have $10 million to blow, just to blow it, I don't get this disconnect of like, I don't get this connect of like, this LA producer is like gonna like take you to the top, girl. Like, that's a storyline for like a Layla Grant or like somebody who, or like a Will Lexington or like somebody who's like fledgling, like not for the Juliet Barnes character, which is why I was just like, wait a second, what's going on? Did I miss something?
That's valid. Another character who has a good story, like I mentioned earlier, Will has a really good character arc throughout the season. Will is dating Layla, and he ends up proposing to her in this season, and they are given a reality show because they are, those fledgling country artists, and their show is kind of reminiscent of like Nick Lachey and Jessica Simpson's show, but with much more tension. This is the season when he actually tells someone, because Gunnar only learned that Will was gay when Will hit on him. He tells Layla that he's gay, and his confession is actually caught on hidden camera, which was hard. Oh, my stomach dropped when I realized that he was being recorded. That whole scene was done so well. This season, I felt like this season, as inconsistent as it might have been, was still more digestible than season 1.
It felt like there were too many other weird things that were happening. Juliet's whole thing didn't make sense. for me. It felt like they were backtracking or trying to like retcon or like retell a story. Liam McGinnis shouldn't have been there. Juliet having sex with like this British lord person was like dumb. Don't even know what that was about. That felt silly. The Teddy plot continued to be also weird and silly. I mean, I think the things that stand out as being like really interesting and like really good was everything, like the stuff that involved Jet was like really great. The stuff with Layla and Will was really great. I didn't like the Scarlet breakdown plot, but I thought it made sense. I felt like it was reasonably paced. I also loved Deacon's new girlfriend that he gets. Deacon starts dating a woman who is a lawyer, and she is completely secure within herself. She doesn't feel threatened by Raina. She has things to do and a life to lead, and she does that. And she is basically like everything Deacon like actually needs in his life. She knows what she's about. She knows what she wants. She knows what she doesn't want. Their relationship and like that whole thing is great to look at. And I like the whole like Deacon forming this relationship with Maddie. That storyline is really wonderful, particularly when Maddie asks him a question about why he wasn't there. Maddie sort of starts to frame it in a way that like Raina's the enemy. And I like that they write it so that Deacon makes it really clear to Maddie that like he was having issues with substance abuse, and he was like not fit to parent her in any sort of way. Even though like he's hurt by Raina's choice, when he talks to Maddie, he reinforces Raina's choice. He's like, your mom did the right thing. But that stuff wasn't like enough, at least for me, to outshine, I think, the big problems, which was that a lot of this stuff just felt random.
Mm-hmm. I kind of wish Amy Sherman Palladino had watched that episode with Luke and Maddie before having Christopher exonerate himself in Gilmore Girls: A Year in a Life. But yeah, what do we think of season 2? Is it good, bad, or basic?
I think I'm giving it, I'm definitely between bad and basic. I think I'll give it like a basic.
I mean, I gave season 1 on the low side of good, so I'll give season 2 like the high side of basic, I guess.
Side of basic, I hate it.
So yeah.
So season 2 ends with Juliet experiencing, I guess, like the fallout of this thing. Also, there's like a whole, at the end of season 2, there's like a whole thing where Michelle Obama comes to talk to the troops. It's silly. I forgot it happened completely. Also, Deacon declaring to Raina that like he wants to seriously be in Maddie's life and be a good dad to her. Season 3 picks up with Will like promoting this album and this album being successful, and Raina is deep in with Luke Wheeler, and Avery and Juliet, of course, have issues like they always do.
One of the great things that happened in season 2 was that Raina released Scarlett from her contract, which was excellent for everyone involved. But Raina, like, I guess this is their way of giving the Raina character drama. Luke proposes and she accepts. Deacon proposes also with a ring, and she don't know what to do. But she decides in season 3 that she's going to go with Luke because it's Raina, and she's always made the choice of the dependable man. She married Teddy over Deacon because she could count on him as a partner and a co-parent. Scarlett is planning to go back to Mississippi in season 3, and Juliet is auditioning to play Patsy Cline in a movie. She's still dealing with the heartache of her breakup with Avery, and one of the best scenes in this season, in my opinion, is when she's auditioning, and she auditions with Patsy's greatest hit, Crazy. And she's still processing this breakup with Avery, and she is crying, and these tears are just rolling beautifully down her face as she's auditioning. And you can just tell from the way the casting directors are looking at her, she got it. The role is hers. So she's actually being productive post-breakup. It's interesting with Juliet. She's someone who's actually most productive when she's unhappy and eager to prove herself. When she actually gets what she wants, she kind of goes into sabotage mode. There's truly a cycle of self-destruction within this character that presents itself each and every season, despite whatever growth and whatever hurdles she has made.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and then also something that happens in season 3 is Juliet finds out she's ego prego with Avery's baby.
Yeah, you could have heard a pin drop when the doctor told her how far along she was, because obviously, since she fucked Jeff, there was a chance that baby was his. But thankfully, she was so far enough along that she knew the baby was Avery's. Thank you, writers, for not making that Jeff's baby, because we didn't really need that type of drama.
I'm sure, and I'm sure somebody was like, no, it has to be Jeff's. And then somebody else talked somebody else into reason. Reason and thinking. So one of the things that I do really like about that I think Nashville does well to sell this story and be really great is, and it's probably because Nashville aired on ABC, which ABC is parent's company is like Disney, and Disney owns everything, is that it's great that they do sort of get Raina and all these other artists, because the show grounds itself in the real world, because they do mention other real working artists, oh, if Juliet keeps going like this, she'll end up like Taylor Swift. So these people are they ground them in the real world, but they're able to, one thing that's great is first of all the guest stars, Brad Paisley is in season 1, and in season 3, Raina is performing on Good Morning America, summer concert series, which is cool. And there's in previous seasons, she sits down with Katie Couric, and when the whole Maddie Deacon thing is revealed or whatever, Teddy Deacon and Raina all go on Good Morning America to spill their guts about the whole situation. But I was if you're a real star, on this caliber, you're spilling your guts to Oprah Winfrey and nobody else. That's the only thing that got me. I was you're not telling Robin Roberts your business. No, it's Oprah or nobody. But I guess Oprah couldn't make herself available. I do like that. I do think that's something that the show gets right and does really well. Yeah, the Good Morning America plot was pretty well integrated, because that's where most white celebrities go, especially if they're in the tabloids anyway. So that didn't bother me at all. What kind of bothered me was Juliet getting pregnant, telling Raina, Glenn, and Emily she's signed to Highway 65 by now. And then she texts Avery. And I'm there's certain things that you don't tell someone via text. But Avery, to his credit, cleans up his act, because he's been drinking heavily since their breakup, and he's really wants to be there for her. A wholly unnecessary plot, however, is Gunner's son, Micah, or presumed initially son, Micah. His ex, Kylie, comes back into his life, trying to get away from her abusive husband, and brings him a boy whom she says is his son. And Micah and Kylie serve the purpose of driving a wedge between Gunner and Zoe, who are still going strong, and no other purpose whatsoever. Yeah, it's the writers were you get a baby, you get a baby, you get a baby. Everybody has a baby. Shout out to Alexa Vega, though. Alexa Vega plays Kylie. Of Spy Kids fame. She looks great. She looks really she suns regularly. So good for her.
Right. And I mean, this, like I said, this plot was so unnecessary, because they were only trying to drive a wedge between Zoe and Gunner, who has issues with him having an 8-year-old son all of a sudden. And then later, we have to go back to Gunner's brother, a character whom was killed in season 1, and Gunner had been off the rails for some time, when we learn that Micah's not his son because his brother Jason had raped Kylie. Was any of this really necessary to further the plot of Gunner, the character? Because I really don't think so.
It wasn't. It just felt like stuff. I don't know. And listen, so something that was like a thing was that like Zoe, the actress who plays Zoe, and like what's his like Sam Palladino?
Palladio.
Oh, Palladio. Sam Palladio and the actress who plays Zoe were dating in real life. So I don't know if it was like they broke up and they were looking for a way. And he was like, yeah, like she's got to go. And they were looking for a way to like kick Zoe off the show. I don't know, but it was, that's my only that's my speculative thing. I'm like, that must be the reason. Because otherwise, like, what was the purpose?
Yeah. So it's interesting to me because I knew that they were dating in real life, but I didn't consider that they had broken up. When I saw this Kylie plot happening and the wedge being put in between Gunnar and Zoe, all I could think is this show is trying to set us up for another whack Gunnar and Scarlett reconciliation. And I'm like, they just want him to be boring so bad. He's so interesting when he's not with Scarlett.
Yeah, he feels like he's doing something when he's not with Scarlett, but alas. Also Avery cleans up his act because he has not been good. Granted, he's like very firm that like he's only there to be there for the baby.
Yeah, she has her daughter Cadence, and she starts suffering from postpartum depression, but she's in denial about it. So she doesn't really let anyone help her. And she starts acting out in like the weirdest ways. Like she fires Glenn, who's been OG ride or die, discovered her at a county fair when she was 12, and pretty much the only man who's never done her wrong or taken advantage of her in any way. She signs to Luke's label, even though she's still signed with Highway 65.
Right, sis. And poor Avery, like Avery does all the things that like you're supposed to do. Like Avery goes to like the therapist and he's like, she's gone. Like it's breaking down. Like I have no clue where she is. And the therapist is like, Avery, like all you can do is what you're going to do. You know, all you can do is like protect your child and that's it. And, you know, I guess Avery's trying to live with that, but it's not. I don't know. He's not. It's just none of it's going well. It's all just like, it's all going downhill. Also, Deacon has to get like he has like cirrhosis of the liver because duh, and he has to get a liver transplant, and he gets it from Scarlett's mom.
We learn why Beverly and Deacon are the way they are because we learn that their father was also an alcoholic and he was physically abusive to both them and their mother. And we also learn the backstory of why Deacon is like, you know, country famous and Beverly never really made it. When they both had a chance to go on tour with Raina, which is how his career started as a touring musician, she stayed behind for some loser that she was in love with, and then she got pregnant with Scarlett later. And by the time she was trying to like really make it, like, and was serious about it, it was too late because she was in a shitty relationship with a man just as abusive as their father, and she had a kid to take care of. So we kind of see how her resentments about her, you know, the track her life has taken, her family, the fact that her brother made it and she didn't, how all of these manifested in the way that she raised Scarlett. So I felt like season 3 humanized Beverly and Deacon to a great extent.
So in season 3, Raina and Luke are getting married, and Luke sort of like hits her with the prenup, right? And Raina's like, what do you mean we're signing a prenup? And I was like, bitch, are you dumb? Like,
girl,
you have assets.
like you are really dumb, for real.
For real. Like, I was like, you have assets, honey. Like, you have a lot of money and you have a lot of assets. Like, of course you need a prenup. In fact, you should be so glad that he is like with it as well. Like, you've got to protect yourself. Like, and she's like, I just was like, wanted to be in love. And like, I didn't realize I had to like sign like a prenup or whatever. And I was like, oh, like, what? Like, I mean, have you been hitting the bottle with Deacon? Like, what's going on? Like, what's the situation?
The whole thing was incredibly crazy. And like the reason why that plot didn't make sense to me is not even because they're both wealthy, because I've seen like wealthy people get married and not sign a prenup. It's because y'all motherfuckers are old and you've both been divorced before. It's time to get the stars out of your eyes. Like, you've been married and divorced and you have 2 kids. He's been married and divorced and he's got a kid as well. Your assets are with it, like, fluctuate between a couple $1,000,000 of each other. There's a periods where he probably has more money and then periods where she's got more money. This is about protecting your assets for your children first and foremost, and not being naive enough to think that marriage lasts forever since, again, you've both been divorced already.
Exactly. And it's like, Colt, who is Luke's son, seems like a little shit. Like, do you want Colt when he's older to be contesting shit so that like he owns Highway 65 and Luke's label? Like,
right. And like, yeah, what happens if like Luke dies in that marriage, right? Like, if he's not protecting his son, you can't just assume that your partner is going to have your children's best interests at heart when you pass.
Right.
Like, so, and what would happen to Maddie and Daphne if something happened to her? Like, prenups are about protection.
Right, because Teddy's in jail by now. Teddy's gone to prison. Teddy's in prison. So, like, he cannot, like, do what needs to be done. And so I was just like, ugh, that's dumb. And I was like, ugh, yikes. Oh, there's also this magical Negro plot in season 3. With Scarlett and this homeless black man that is like super cringe that I wish they had just left out.
Yeah, I blocked that out, so I don't have anything to say on it.
I was just like, this is terrible. Block. I wish this had never happened.
I just put up a Negro defense filter and kept it moving.
But nice things that I have to say about season 3, because I always try to find something nice, is that I liked Derek Ho, like Huff. I don't know. Julianne Ho. I don't know. I don't remember. I can't pronounce these people's names. Derek Huff, who was on Dancing with the Stars, was like acting, and he didn't do a bad job. He didn't suck. I believed him as an actor. He plays Juliet's love interest while she's filming that Patsy Cline movie, and he becomes love interest, and he's perfectly fine on screen. He's got a nice presence. I wouldn't mind seeing him in more stuff.
Yeah, I liked him a lot too. And I felt like they had good chemistry together as working actors. They have this really sweet moment when they're filming a love scene and he touches her stomach when they're in the bed together. And like the way the blanket is placed, the camera doesn't really see it. But by touching her, like, the difference between like a big stomach and like a pregnant stomach. And he realizes she's pregnant, but he's a gentleman about it and doesn't say anything and like keeps that shit to himself.
Right. He's a real one. He keeps his stuff locked up. Also, another thing I like about this season is I really like Glenn's wigs. I think they're doing a really good job with Glenn's like
I thought it was hair plugs. I never know. I thought Glenn got hair plugs because it was looking real nice in season 3 for real.
It was looking very nice. I really appreciated it. So like shout out to hair, makeup, wardrobe. You guys did it with Glenn's little hair pieces. He looks really nice. I do think the color is a bit too light sometimes. But other than that, that's what's up.
I really love Glenn and Juliet's relationship, by the way. It's very paternal. They kind of remind me of a Giles and Buffy if Buffy had many more psychological issues and unresolved trauma. Glenn is a real one. Glenn is always there for her. Glenn is the closest thing she had to a father since her father died when she was like 3 or 4 years old.
Right.
The Glenn character is consistently the only person who doesn't get on my fucking nerves on this show.
Like, actually, though, Glenn and Bucky probably the only ones.
They're real writers for real. They like Bucky goes so hard for Raina and Glenn goes so hard for Juliet, and I love to see it. Like,
and I love it.
I'm glad that this show left behind the sleazy manager storylines. Even when Jeff starts dating Layla, which happens in this season, It doesn't feel sleazy. It doesn't feel like he's using her. It doesn't feel like
Oh,
he's trying to leverage sex to help her career.
that's true. It is toxic, but you do it in you. I think you do get the sense that he does care for her genuinely.
Right. And I also get the sense that every relationship Jeff has ever been in is toxic. There's that.
Yeah. So yeah, Jeff's yeah, so Layla and Jeff is like, well, first of all, Layla had just been already like season 3 is rough because I already feel like Layla's just been on the show for too long. It's been on for 2 seasons too long. But they put Layla and Jeff together and I'm like, okay, well, this is semi-interesting. But it's interesting because it's interesting to watch because like Jeff becomes Layla's manager. Because in season 3, throughout the course of season 2 and season 3, a bunch of stuff happens and like he's fired from Edge Hill. Watching their relationship is just like weird because Layla then gets herself signed to like Highway 65 and Jeff is managing her career. But like we said, Bucky is also somebody that like works at Highway 65 and like is helping all these other artists. And there's a scene where Raina and Bucky are looking at Jeff's contract that he's had Layla sign, and they read it and they're like, ugh. And there's a lot of stuff in it where like Jeff essentially like owns her masters, and basically like Layla can't breathe unless Jeff says she's allowed to. And Bucky and Raina call Layla to be like, hey, we were looking at your contract. There's a bunch of stuff in here that seems kind of sketch. Come over and like, let's talk about it. And Jeff like deletes the message. Like when it comes on her phone, Jeff like deletes it. So like that is like, so that whole relationship is like interesting because it's like he to his credit, like he works really hard on her behalf, but there's also like a very dark undercurrent there. So that's why that plot is interesting.
Yeah, for sure. Like, it never feels like he's like, using her body or trying to exploit her, to an audience, but he does clearly want to be in control of her money, which is the Jeff character from Jump. This is who he's always been, even before he was sleeping with Layla. When he was Edge Hill CEO, he was always a numbers man. And now that he's fallen, he's like clinging to this artist who he really didn't believe in before, but he saw her perform in public and saw how much better her music is when like she can kind of do her own thing. And he realized that, Layla's a cash cow and he's kind of been sleeping on it, but he actually does get to know her as a person and like, actually likes her and actually has feelings for her. So that dynamic was really, really cool because even though Jeff is not trying to exchange like being her manager for sexual favors, it's still pretty much a cautionary tale of you shouldn't, shit where you work. Like, don't sleep with your managers, girls. Like, if you learn anything from any of these shows, don't sleep with your managers.
Yeah, and make sure that you're at the forefront of like your business decisions. Cause like even then, like I think there's a place in season 3, Layla asks him like, what about this and this in terms of money? And he's like, oh, don't worry about that. You know that I handle the business. I'm like, yikes. I'm like, but she should know. She should be aware.
A manager is not a substitute for an entertainment lawyer. Get you one. That's all I'm going to say.
That's real. And he does have like definitely like a huge influence over Layla because even when Layla's recording music, when Layla records and presents it to Raina, Layla's like, okay, well, this is something Jeff and I are really happy about. And Raina's like, okay, but like, this is what I hear. And like, I want to work with you. I want to help it get better. She's essentially like, I think the relationship you can compare it to is the relationship between a writer and an editor. Your editor is like, okay, well, like, what about this? Let's think about this. What about this section? Like, let's try to improve it. And she's like, well, Jeff said, and Jeff said, and Jeff said, and Raina's like, okay, but you though, do you have thoughts on for yourself? And watching that and sort of watching how you can get into a real relationship and sort of have a partner brainwash you without like even you yourself realizing it it was an interesting story for them to take. They don't ever. So the thing about Nashville is like Nashville doesn't ever fully realize anything, but it is, but like that sort of moment is cool.
Right. I feel like this was also like the first time that the Layla character had been interesting, because Layla with Will knew that something was deeply wrong. I think she knew he was gay before she said it, because she knew that something was wrong in their relationship, especially after he proposed and they started living together. She's kind of reduced to this very pathetic character, first being lied to and being played to cover up this man's secret. And then later this like fallen artist who no one really is fucking with and no one really cares about her career. And, you know, the situation with Jeff and then signing to Highway 65 is when her character gets some real oomph, because she was like a down on her luck version of Scarlett for most of season 1 and 2.
Right. And the reason why I say that I thought like Layla was like a Kelly Pickler is like Layla also, when she gets introduced into Nashville, is like she's coming off a reality competition, right?
Right. She had just won a reality show, and then she realized to her detriment, and I thought that was a really great thing too that the show didn't explore. She thought that this reality show had set her up when really it had just made her a joke. And this is something that you see in reality shows about everything. Voice, even like shows like ANTM, the girls that won America's Next Top Model, they're not really booking like that. Except maybe one or two, right?
And those are usually like the Juliets of the world, right? Who have enough like smart and savvy to like spin it into something different.
Right. And like American Idol winners, like hell, some of the winners have been surpassed by the people who were runner up, right? And it's like Clay Aiken is surpassed by Ruben Studdard. I think the most successful of American Idol winners who still have successful careers are Kelly Clarkson and Fantasia Barrino. That's pretty much it. Like, and
Carrie Underwood. I think Carrie Underwood won.
I had stopped watching by that. I honestly don't know. But yeah, Carrie Underwood counts. She was on the show, so it counts regardless. But when you think about the sheer volume of people who were on that show and made it to the top 3, how many of them actually have successful careers right now? Like, I'll wait. Let me play the Jeopardy music. Because they don't. And Layla fell into that, basically. She charmed America with her personality. She won that show off her talent and, you know, the strength of audience members liking her. But she couldn't translate that into a real career. The show could have done such a better job by actually focusing on her swallowing this bitter pill, trying to market herself differently, becoming like an indie artist who gets signed by one of these records because of the strength of her self-promotion. But it didn't really go that way. She just was Will's beard for a little while, and then she became Jeff's project.
Right, which sucks. Yeah, because she and it's bad because she initially like sells Will on doing the reality show at first to do exactly what you just said, to like try to like hustle to like make it something different, which is what I think a lot of people do, but is never like the right move initially. And also and in fact, the even the whole like Will Layla reality plot and it being bad for Layla's career, that part of the show of Nashville felt dated. There are lots of parts of Nashville that feel dated. The Katie Couric and the extra stuff feel like when like people are talking about them on Katie Couric, or like if people are talking about them on Extra or like some other like TV tabloid thing, felt dated. Also in like season 1 or season 2, there's like a brief mention of Twitter, but it's like never brought up again.
Right.
And then the reality show being a hindrance felt dated because like now we know that that's not the case. Like, and that's also part of what makes Nashville like an interesting cultural artifact. Cause I mean, this show only ended in 2015. It's amazing to see how just, in 4 years, in just 4 years, the landscape is so rapidly changed. You know what I mean?
Right. And this is what I said earlier when I compared their reality show to Nick Lachey and Jessica Simpson's reality show, because that's exactly what it felt like. Like, y'all got on a reality show. It was awkward. You humiliated yourselves, and neither of your careers ever recovered from it. That is Will and Layla's reality show. That is not. Right. It's not the modern day reality shows where you can literally springboard that into a legitimate enterprise, or at least a career as a quote unquote influencer.
Right, because now you have people who go on reality and like you said, they launch legitimate careers. And it's not even from the singing competition shows. Singing competition shows nowadays are just that, singing competition shows. If you want to launch your music career, you do 11 Hip Hop, you do a Real Housewives, you do one of those, because those can you do well, this is old. I think this is this is probably more dated, but right,
and this show came out in 2011, and it was harkening back to that Nick Lachey, Jessica Simpson reality show from 2005.
Anyway, so season 3 ends with, also Christina Aguilera shows up randomly this season. That's cool, I guess.
Except she's not playing herself.
She's not playing herself.
She's playing a popular musician who's basically Christina Aguilera, but doesn't have Christina Aguilera's name. It's so weird because we have Trisha Yearwood, Carrie Underwood as herself, Brad Paisley, Joe Nickel, Florida Georgia Line, Sarah Evans. We even have Tracy Edmonds, ex-wife of Kenneth Babyface Edmonds, all appear on the show as themselves. And I'm just I
don't know. It's a good question. I don't know. I don't know what would be the issue. So season 3 ends with Juliet sort of walking out on Avery. Yeah, she walks out on Avery and the baby because she's I'm over this shit. And not she's over it. She's just going through a really hard time. She thinks the distance will make it better. Beverly ends up in a coma after the liver transplant because something has gone horribly wrong. There's been a complication. It's just a complication. Will is trying to finally date this dude. And Scarlett and freaking Gunnar get back together for the billionth time. Ugh, whatever.
Right. Will is forced out of the closet after tabloids get pictures of him and Kevin. And instead of denying the allegations like he always has, he finally comes clean. Julia checks out on Avery, not for the last time. Season 3 actually ends. They don't tell us what has happened to Deacon or Beverly. The doctor says that someone flatlined during the operation, and they give us this major cliffhanger to basically get us to tune into the season 4 premiere.
Right.
Which is, it's juvenile, but it works because I was there ready to watch season 4.
Oh, season 3. Season 3, good, bad, basic.
Season 3 was, I'm going to say it's better. It's better than the last 2.
Yeah, I get it's basic plus for me.
Oh my God. Basic plus it's a type of cable. In 1995 we had basic plus cable. It's pretty much what it is. There were lots of unnecessary plots, Colt and Luke's son Maddie started dating after their parents broke up. Why does Colt need to be here? Shout out to the actor who played Colt. I'm sure his role as Colt is what got him cast as Daniel on Euphoria later on. But why are you here though? I'm glad he's playing a character that semi serves a purpose on Euphoria, though he's pretty forgettable on that show as well. Teddy getting arrested for not turning in Raina's sister Tandy was gallant, except he was just as guilty as Tandy. So it's not like he was taking the fall for her. He just got extra time because he didn't rat her out.
Right. Like I said, season 3 for me was that happened. In one sense, I think season 3 is more cohesive, but then it's boring. So it doesn't.
That's exactly what it is. It is more cohesive, but boring.
And I don't think it's boring because it is legitimately boring. I think it's boring because 1, they ran out of story because they did it all in season 1 and season 2. And then 2, I think it's still not paced well.
The Will coming out plot was also like, I felt it was one of those things where like in season 1 and 2 they rushed through things, and this is something that they stretch out that I didn't feel needed to be stretched out. We've been dealing with Luke's shame, or we've been dealing with Will's shame of being gay for a really long time. Sorry, I keep calling him Luke, you guys. That's the character Chris Carmack played on the OC.
See, same. I always want to call him Luke.
Drawing it out further, where we see the shame that he had with his father and with his mother, I felt that was all wholly unnecessary, especially when we end season 2 with that secret confession. Like, him being forced out of the closet should have been wrapped up by episode 3 of season 3.
Right, and that's fair. And there you have it, folks. This is everything that we think made the first 3 seasons of Nashville good, bad, basic, and for the most part, entertaining. If you'd like to watch or relive this series, Nashville is currently streaming on Hulu.
ABC might not have been the best home for Nashville in those early seasons, but the concept was unlike anything the network had done in years, and the series was easily the most original show on ABC at the time, for better or for worse.
Tune in next week when Em and I will be recapping seasons 4 through 6 of Nashville. Until then, our top tier patrons can tune in to our next movie review of 1994's The Swan Princess. The episode goes live this Saturday. In the meantime, if you'd like to watch or relive this film, The Swan Princess is currently streaming on Hulu.
Follow The Good, The Bad, The Basic on all major podcast platforms to listen to all of our regular weekly episodes on the go. If you love this sort of content and want more, consider becoming a show producer and patron on Patreon. You can find us at patreon.com/goodbadbasic. Your support allows us to keep bringing you our regular weekly episodes as well as exclusive bonus material.
Be sure to follow us at Good Bad Basic Pod on Twitter. And of course, follow our SoundCloud page, The Good, The Bad, The Basic, where all of our social media links are listed. Until next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.